Welcome back to the Inside Cybersecurity Podcast, brought to you by Oraseg. I'm your host, Daniel Rhodes, and today we're examining a critical challenge emerging in cybersecurity, the trust trap in AI. Organizations are increasingly deploying AI systems to make security decisions, assess risks, prioritize threats, and automate compliance. The promise is clear. AI can process vast amounts of data, identify patterns humans might miss, and operate at speeds no security team can match. But beneath this promise lies a more troubling development. AI systems are not simply automating decisions, they're fundamentally changing how organizations exercise judgment. When an AI flags a vulnerability as low priority, security teams increasingly accept that assessment without scrutiny. When a compliance tool generates a risk score, GRC professionals treat it as authoritative. The system appears intelligent, presents a confident answer, and human questioning stops. This phenomenon is called automation bias. Research in decision science shows that people tend to trust automated systems even when these systems contradict human judgment. What makes this particularly dangerous in cybersecurity is that it happens gradually. Teams do not consciously decide to stop thinking critically. They simply defer more judgment to the machine over time, and the organization slowly loses its capacity to question, to reason independently, and to challenge automated outputs. The question we need to ask is whether we are building AI systems that genuinely augment human intelligence, or whether we're building systems that replace human judgment entirely. And if organizations are moving towards the latter, what are the consequences when AI gets it wrong? To explore this question, I'm joined today by Sumedha Advada. Sumedha is the Regional Head of IT Governance, Risk and Compliance at FAB, one of the largest banking groups in the Middle East. In that role, she oversees GRC across a significant digital infrastructure, which means she observes firsthand how organizations deploy AI in high-stakes security environments. She is also the founder of CyberConnect Lead, a platform connecting cybersecurity professionals across the region. Sumedha brings both the strategic perspective of someone designing governance frameworks for AI and the practical experience of someone who sees how these systems actually perform in production environments. Sumedha, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Daniel. Happy to be here. This is a huge deal. Right now, people are trusting neat dashboards way too much. We are losing our healthy doubt. So this is the right time to discuss this topic. Thank you.
Let's start by defining what it is we're talking about. So when we say the trust trap in AI, what exactly does that mean? How would you describe this phenomenon to someone who works in cybersecurity but hasn't thought about this specifically?
See, it's pretty simple. AI is a very powerfully confident technology. I often describe it this way. AI outputs are strongly backed by beautifully generated confidence. The trust trap happens when AI stops being treated as a tool and starts being treated as an authority. The screen looks so clean and smart that you stop questioning it. Think about it. An analyst is super tired. They see a bright green dashboard score. The AI says everything is fine. The human sighs with relief and moves on. In cybersecurity, this is dangerous because confidence is often mistaken for correctness. AI systems generate polished outputs, prioritization scores, and recommendations so convincingly that teams unconsciously stop questioning them. The irony is that security professionals are trained to distrust humans, but we are now becoming overly trusting of machines. Science shows humans trust machines even when their own eyes tell them something is wrong. In our field, this happens slowly. You don't just wake up one day and stop thinking. You just let the machine win small points day by day. Eventually, the team forgets how to think for themselves. So the trap in simple terms is, if it looks professional and speaks with math, we assume it can't lie. Earlier, we used to say, trust but verify. Now organizations are becoming AI said it, so approved. That is a dangerous mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to talk more with you, both as someone who oversees security systems, but also as a practitioner yourself. exactly where you're seeing the trust trap coming up. Would you say that, would you say that you're seeing it a lot when it comes to compliance automation or more around risk scoring, threat detection? Are you able to pinpoint some part of the organization where you think that the trust trap is the most available for teams?
So in cybersecurity field, the trust trap is becoming highly visible in few fields, like in certain activities like AI driven risk scoring, automated compliance evidence collection, then vulnerability prioritization, third party risk assessments, AI assisted SOC operations. So let's take an example of security assessment reports. In the old days, the team would read every page of the vendor security report. They checked everything. Today, they use AI tools. The AI reads thousands of pages in 2 seconds. It pops out a score like 94% safe and a green color. And guess what? The team just clicks approve. They don't check if the AI missed a huge red flag on page 50. It creates a complete illusion of safety. It looks beautiful on screen but dangerous in reality. Leadership feels reassured instantly, but compliance percentages often hide contextual weaknesses that only human judgment can identify. AI sees data, experienced professionals see consequences.
I see. In decision science, there's a concept of automation bias, where if something is automated, people tend to trust it more than a manual process. I guess we seem to think that machines can't make mistakes. Cybersecurity professionals are, of course, very trained in systems and in programming. Uh, how do you see it playing out in the cybersecurity space? Do you find that security personnel are more likely to notice and avoid automation bias, or are they just as likely to fall for the same trap as regular folks?
Absolutely. And cybersecurity is actually one of the most dangerous places for automation bias to emerge. Because unlike many industries, cybersecurity is an adversarial domain. In aviation, healthcare, manufacturing, systems mostly operate against predictable conditions. In cybersecurity, the attacker is intelligent, adaptive, and actively studying human behavior. That changes everything. What we are seeing today is that security professionals are increasingly trusting AI driven threat scores, automated vulnerability prioritization, SIEM correlations, AI generated incident summaries, and even AI based compliance dashboards without always validating the underlying reasoning. And the irony is fascinating. They are trained for zero trust on humans, but now they are almost blindly trusting AI tools. That's the new paradox. Because cybersecurity teams are already overloaded, exhausted, and drowning in alerts, automation becomes psychologically comforting. So, if a system says this vulnerability is low priority, many teams accept it immediately because it reduces the cognitive load. But attackers understand this too. In fact, modern cyber attacks are increasingly targeting not just infrastructure but decision making itself. Take prompt injection attacks in Gen AI systems, or poison telemetry, or for example, manipulated AI assisted recommendations. The attacker no longer needs to directly hack your firewall these days. Sometimes compromising your trust in automated judgment is enough. And we are already seeing parallels in real life. There are famous GPS incidents where people literally drove into lakes or restricted roads because the navigation system said turn left. Cybersecurity is entering its GPS era. The danger is not that AI makes mistakes. Human makes mistakes too. The danger is when humans stop challenging the system. And honestly, security professionals may actually be more susceptible in some cases because they operate under constant fatigue, this pressure for faster decisions always, executive expectations are rising, and modern tooling is becoming incredibly persuasive in presentation. A polished dashboard always looks good. It creates an illusion of certainty. If the interface looks intelligent, people assume the reasoning is intelligent too. That's automation bias. I think the future challenge for cybersecurity leaders is not how do we automate more. It is how do we preserve human judgment while using intelligent automation. because eventually the strongest organizations will not be the ones deploying AI the fastest. They will be the ones governing AI the smartest. And maybe the new cybersecurity mantra should be trust the machine, but never retire your skepticism.
Yeah, I like that. You mentioned the example of the person driving into the lake using the GPS, and I definitely can feel a lot of similarities in our work, where people, especially nowadays that we're so encouraged to use AI tooling to improve our productivity or to speed us up. It's very difficult, as you said, to do both at the same time, to use the GPS, but at the same time, always maintaining your skepticism. So I'm looking forward to talking more about how, on a psychological level and on an organizational level, we can try to do both at the same time. But maybe before we get there, you can maybe tell us a little bit about a specific example that you've seen. So we've already discussed the trust trap in AI. I think, although we're talking about it today in the framework of cybersecurity, I think we all feel this trust trap with AI in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our education. Kids in school today, it can be very hard for them to sit down and write an essay when they know that they can just have AI write it for them. So we discussed the trust trap. We talked about how it's prevalent even in highly trained, highly technical environments. And to your point, in an adversarial environment, our adversary is always looking for that edge. And if they're able to find an extra edge with AI, they're going to take it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about an example that you've seen firsthand, where a team accepted an AI-generated recommendation or AI-generated sequence, and in hindsight, maybe they should have questioned it, and what went wrong in the moment.
Yeah. Yes. So I generally in my cybersecurity field, I often discuss this one example which is around AI assisted vulnerability prioritization. So once a security team had implemented an AI enhanced platform that automatically classified the vulnerabilities. So they used various parameters like exploitability, then external threat intelligence, asset exposure, and predicted business impact on a lot of parameters. Now on paper, this looked extremely advanced. The dashboard was polished, the risk scoring looked scientific, using a proper mathematical calculations. So the leadership loved the efficiency. And one particular vulnerability affecting an internal application was marked by the platform as medium risk, and the remediation can be deferred as acceptable. So naturally, the team deprioritized it. Now, technically, the AI wasn't entirely wrong. The vulnerability itself was not internet facing. The application was low risk. Wasn't actively being exploited globally, and the CVSS score also wasn't alarming. But what the AI system did not fully understand was the business context of this application. That internal application was actually connected to a highly sensitive regulatory workflow involving customer financial data and privileged access integrations. A few weeks later, during deeper manual review, the team realized that the lateral movement through that supposedly medium risk vulnerability could potentially expose the high value systems and the data that the systems are hosting. Now, fortunately, this did not become a breach because it was identified in time, but it became a governance lesson. Because when we analyzed why the team trusted the recommendation so quickly, the answer was fascinating. It wasn't only the technology, it was psychology. The team trusted it because the output looked intelligent, the reasoning sounded structured, the dashboard reduced the alert fatigue, and most importantly, it gave the exhausted teams permission to move on. That's the hidden part nobody talks about. AI often becomes attractive because humans believe machines are perfect, but not because humans believe machines are perfect, but because humans are tired, and tired teams are more vulnerable to automation bias. There's also another subtle factor. Modern AI systems communicate with extraordinary confidence, as I was mentioning at the beginning of this podcast. The tools have got amazing confidence in their outputs. You must naturally associate confidence with competence. It's our mindset. If an analyst says, I think this may be medium risk, but I'm unsure, people pause and then they rethink. But the same thing if an AI dashboard says medium risk, recommended action, deferred. The human brain interprets it as certainty, cast in stone. That's dangerous And honestly, cybersecurity is not unique here. We have seen similar behavior in aviation autopilot incidents, algorithmic trading, healthcare diagnostics, even GPS navigation, as I was talking about in previous question. Cybersecurity is now entering that same phase. So the real lesson is this: AI should absolutely accelerate cybersecurity operations. But the moment humans stop asking, could the system be wrong in this context? We stop using AI as intelligence implement augmentation and start outsourcing judgment itself. And that is where the real risk begins.
Yeah, a very powerful example. You said that they learned the lesson, and I wish that was true. I suspect that a lot of companies, they don't learn the lesson, and we're on a path to repeat the problem again and again.
Correct.
Um, you talked about how people, they let go of their own judgment when they're facing a system that sounds really confident. And for deep psychological reasons, we're programmed to trust automated processes. We're programmed to trust uh, systems that sound confident and competent, even if they're not. So I'm curious, if we turn the page to how do we start to prevent this sort of automation bias and the trust trap. We're already training our employees how to use and how to trust AI, but how do we start to train them to use and trust, once again, their own judgment? How do we, if we think 3 years down the line, I'm sure, all of us, sometimes when we see the path that AI and technology is taking us, it could seem like it's a one-way path and there's no coming back. And I'm curious, from your perspective, from your experience, what are the kinds of not speed bumps, but what are the things we can do along the way to train our employees not only to use and trust AI, but equally so, how to maintain their ability to judge correctly and their willingness to judge correctly?
Yeah, so a good security professional is naturally skeptical. But the moment AI enters the room, something changes psychologically. And I believe there are three major reasons behind it. The first is what I call the illusion of computational superiority. As I was explaining, humans assume if this AI system has analyzed billions of data points in seconds, it must know better than me. So even experienced professionals begin treating AI outputs as more objective than human judgment. But AI systems are not objective truth engines. They are not presenting the ultimate truth and the only truth. They are probabilistic systems trained on historical patterns, incomplete data, assumptions, and statistical correlations. Whatever you feed into it, you get the output. And if what you feed into it itself is incomplete, is based on certain assumptions, or based on wrong data, then you cannot guarantee what you are getting back is the correct on the moment of truth. The problem is AI presents uncertainty with extraordinary confidence, as I was mentioning. And as humans, we are deeply influenced by the confidence with how the things are presented. The second reason, as I was mentioning, is operational fatigue. Modern cybersecurity systems or teams are overwhelmed with a lot of alerts, dashboards, compliance requests, incidents, third-party risk, board reporting, regulatory pressures. People are really exhausted. So when AI provides a neat answer, human brain experiences itself a relief. A relief reduces this skepticism. This is extremely important. Most automation bias does not come from laziness, it comes from cognitive overload. AI becomes emotionally attractive because it reduces decision fatigue. Sometimes people trust AI because they fully believe it, but because they desperately want the answer to be correct. And the third reason is something very subtle: the aesthetics of intelligence. Modern AI systems are beautifully designed. The dashboards look intelligent, very nicely presented, colorful. Recommendations sound structured, graphs feel scientific, language is polished, and humans unconsciously associate the presentation quality with reasoning quality. Both are two different things actually. We don't question the reasoning, we lose our skepticism, and that is dangerous. A polished hallucination still remains a hallucination. And we have seen versions of this problem before. There were some aviation incidents where pilots overtrusted autopilot systems. Banking systems rejected loans for certain people, just following one or two historical cases with biased data, and many more. So cybersecurity is now entering its own version of that era. Attackers understand this already. In fact, future cyber attacks may increasingly target trust itself. Imagine an attacker manipulating AI generated recommendations, AI generated escalation summaries, AI generated executive communications. Now the attack is no longer only technical, it becomes cognitive, it is psychological. That's why I often say the future of cybersecurity is not only protecting systems, it is about protecting human judgment. And maybe the most important leadership capability in the AI era will not be technical expertise, it will be disciplined skepticism. The ability to ask, this looks intelligent, but could it still be wrong? The moment organizations stop asking that question, they enter the trust trap.
So what recommendations do you have for organizations that are concerned about this issue? So they understand that this is a problem, the trust trap, and they want to make sure to maintain their ability to judge as humans. Other than just educating them on the risks of trusting the AI too much, do you have any specific recommendations for how organizations can proactively encourage their employees to be more skeptical, more critical? Is there anything that you can suggest?
So, from the CISO's perspective or from the organization's perspective, I would always say that don't let this skepticism go. Okay, don't let this skepticism go out of your profession, and also don't let your teams also turn down the skepticism away from the if you are entering into the cybersecurity field. And what we often do wrong is just deploying awareness sessions and to the employees may resolve all this risk. That is a misunderstanding. So if I had to just give one piece of advice to the CISO in the cybersecurity field who is deploying AI into security operations, so I would just say that do not measure AI success only by efficiency. Measure it by the quality of human judgment that still remains after deployment. That is true even for all businesses, the first line of risk as well. Because honestly, that's the real long-term risk. Most organizations currently evaluate AI through metrics like faster incident response, reduced alert fatigue, lower operational cost, automation coverage, or improved productivity, and the features that the AI is providing, the customer experience, probably the personalization that the AI tool is giving, and those benefits are real, they are true. AI is genuinely transforming cybersecurity operations in powerful ways. But if efficiency improves while critical thinking declines, it's not a good trade off. The organizations may actually become more fragile over time, not more resilient. And the dangerous part is this that fragility often remains invisible until a high pressure incident occurs. That's when organizations suddenly discover the systems were automated, but the humans were no longer fully engaged intellectually. That is the real risk. We are losing that intellectual part of us and giving entirely the control to the AI. And cybersecurity is fundamentally an adversarial field, as I was saying. Attackers continuously evolve, which means organizations cannot rely only on the historical patterns or machine generated certainty. Human skepticism still matters enormously. So, my advice to CISOs is deploy AI aggressively for scale, speed, correlation, repetitive operations, and analytical augmentation, but protect the human reasoning, protect the adversarial thinking, contextual judgment, and independent validation capability with equal seriousness in your team. Because the goal should not be remove humans from security decisions. The goal should be elevate humans to repetitive operational noise above the repetitive operational noise so they can think better. That's a very different philosophy. I also strongly believe CISO should ask themselves one uncomfortable question regularly. If the AI system failed silently today, would my teams still know how to think independently? That question reveals a lot about operational maturity. And honestly, some of the strong organizations I have seen are not the ones with most automation.
Bless you. Take your time. You want to take 2 minutes?
1 sec. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. We'll edit it out. Don't worry. Take your time.
Yeah. So I was saying, some of the strongest organizations I have seen are not the ones with most automation. They are the ones where analysts still challenge recommendations, leadership still encourages skepticism, manual validation still exists, and people are not afraid to question machine generated conclusions. Because
Yeah.
once AI becomes psychologically unquestionable, governance becomes weakened slightly underneath. So, the CISOs of the next decade will not simply be the technology adopters, they will be judgment architects, leaders who understand AI can dramatically improve cybersecurity, but only if organizations preserve the human capability to challenge the machine when it matters the most. Because ultimately, attackers adapt, so does we have to adapt our technology, our intellectual thinking and judgment ability as humans. Technology evolves, but disciplined human judgment remains one of the most important security controls we still have and we will always have.
Yeah, exactly. I think that as AI becomes more powerful and more present throughout the organization, our ability to judge and to think critically is going to become in higher demand within organizations. So I think that young people looking for what are the skills they can develop in order to be competitive in an AI space. I think our discussion today is pointing out that one of the key risks that comes from AI is that people stop thinking. So any young people who are entering the workforce now or in school now, the more that they can prepare themselves to think critically, to be skeptical, to maintain their judgment against an AI system, I think that's going to be very crucial for them in their career. As to your point, those skills become in higher demand because the more powerful the AI is and the more present it is throughout the organization, the more we're going to need people who are able to step up and maintain that level of accountability over the AI, as you said. And that kind of turns the conversation slightly towards accountability. In our organization and most organizations around the world, the AI is starting to become almost an actor within the organization. And a lot of decisions are being made either together with AI or even by AI. And who's accountable for those decisions? How do you think about that? Do we see the vendor as being responsible? Let's say you're using ChatGPT or Claude API. Do they have the responsibility if the AI makes a mistake? Is it the security team that is embedding the AI within their workflow? Is it the organization that's responsible? Of course, we can't hold the AI itself responsible. It's not a person. So I don't know, maybe this is a little bit early in the conversation, but if you have any ideas of how are companies or how are GRC professionals thinking about accountability when you have an artificial intelligence that's making decisions?
I think this is going to be one of the defining governance battles of the AI era, because right now accountability around AI systems is dangerously blurred. When something goes wrong, everyone has convenient explanation. The vendor says the model was configured incorrectly. The internal team says the platform recommendation looked valid. Leadership says we trusted industry standard tooling. And somewhere in the middle, accountability disappears. But regulators are not going to accept disappearing accountability forever, especially in regulated sectors like banking, healthcare, critical infrastructure, telecom, government, and financial services. Because ultimately, AI systems do not hold any fiduciary responsibility. Organizations do. So I'll give you one example. Air Canada had deployed, probably people listening to us would have heard this case. Air Canada had deployed a customer facing conversational AI chatbot to handle basic inquiries. When a customer asked about airline's bereavement fare policy, the chatbot confidently fabricated a non existent policy stating that the customer could apply for the retroactive refund within 90 days of the ticket issuance. So the customer trusted the company's official, highly authoritative digital agent and purchased the tickets, assuming the information was proper, ironclad. Later, after his grandmother's death, he tried to apply that bereavement fare policy and the customer service, and he applied for the refund. So when his refund was getting reviewed, the service agents reviewed the claim. They rigidly pointed to the actual internal policy, which was far different from the non-existent policy which the chatbot had fabricated. And the customer service agents refused to honor the AI's promise. The customer successfully sued the airline. The Canadian tribunal rejected Air Canada's defense that the chatbot was a separate legal entity. No, because they said that the AI cannot be held responsible for its own actions. The corporations, it is present on their website, so the corporations hosting the chatbot are fully liable for the chatbot who was confident, misleading, and incorrect information spouted by their automated interfaces are fully responsibility of that organization itself. So this distinction is extremely important. You can outsource technology, but you cannot outsource accountability. That's the future governance reality. Now, in practice, I think accountability will increasingly operate in layers. The vendor will be responsible for model quality, transparency, explainability, secure architecture, known limitations, and testing rigor. The security team will be responsible for validating outputs, implementing oversight, understanding the limitations of the tool, and ensuring human review exists where required in all layers. And the leadership would be responsible for governance decisions, acceptable risk thresholds, dependency management, and ensuring AI is deployed responsibly. The real danger, however, begins when organizations treat AI recommendations as automatic truth. Because the moment humans stop challenging the system, governance weakens dramatically. And we are already seeing early warning signs of this. So the issue is not how much operational trust humans have already delegated to the systems. That's the governance. This is the key governance question actually. This reminds me something from financial markets. After algorithmic trading become dominant, regulators realized when automated systems fails, the impact spreads faster than humans can intervene. Cybersecurity may face similar realities with AI-driven decision systems. So imagine AI deprioritizes a genuine threat, a vulnerability, as I was saying. Analysts trust the recommendation, escalation gets delayed, the attack spreads, and later everyone says the AI assessed it at low risk. That statement is not going to satisfy your regulators because governance expects human accountability over machine recommendations. This is why explainability becomes critical. If organizations cannot answer why the AI made a decision, who validated it, what oversight existed, and when human intervention was possible, was it done or not, then governance maturity is still weak, regardless of how advanced the AI appears and how polished its output looks. AI may generate the recommendation, but regulators will still ask for a human name. The future of AI governance will not be about replacing accountability, it will be about tracing accountability clearly across humans, systems, vendors, and leadership structures because ultimately algorithms are not going to appear or AI systems are not going to appear before your regulators. Your humans in the organizations will appear in front of the regulators.
Yeah, I think the example that you gave from Air Canada is very telling. I think a lot of us have experienced delays or cancellations from flights, and we have the same thing. We contact Air Canada, we say, hi, my flight was delayed, and the Air Canada says, oh, it wasn't our fault. It had something to do with the airport or with the government or with the weather or something else. So I think airlines in particular are very experienced and sensitive to this kind of breakdown in supply chain, and they've learned to where to when the responsibility lies with them as an organization, was it mechanical failure or staff failure, versus when there's something outside of their domain, and then the responsibility gets pushed further upstream to the manufacturer, or downstream to the airport, or so on, or to the user. Maybe, I know we only have a few more minutes left. I'd love to talk about some high-profile cases that were in the news recently. I have two cases here. Let me pull them up. Yeah, so in March 2026, just a couple months ago, Meta announced that they experienced what they classified as a severity 1 incident, where an AI agent gave incorrect technical guidance to their team that led the company data to actually be leaked to unauthorized employees. So again, it was a case of internal staff trusting an AI system that gave them the wrong information, and that data then became leaked to unauthorized employees for 2 hours, Meta said. A similar case, Meta's actually, ironically, their director of AI safety reported that an OpenClaw agent nearly wiped her entire email inbox, even though she didn't ask it to. There are also cases of Amazon and other large U.S. corporations, technology corporations, who you think would be the most immune to these threats. But perhaps, to your point, the technology companies are also the ones rushing to take this to market and exposing themselves in the process. So what are your thoughts about these incidents? How does it compare to what you're seeing on your side of things? And what does the trust trap actually look like when it causes a security failure? How do teams respond to this, and how do we think about it?
So what's fascinating and actually concerning about these incidents is that the actual problem was not the AI error itself. The deeper issue was humans had already delegated too much of operational trust to the system. That is the real pattern actually emerging globally. And we are seeing smaller versions of this across enterprises already, especially in AI assisted incident response, automated vulnerability prioritization, the example which we spoke a few minutes later earlier, AI generated change recommendations, compliance automation, and then AI assisted operational troubleshooting. Now, obviously, in regulated environments, especially banking, organizations are still cautious. Nobody is yet giving unrestricted autonomy to AI agents in production critical environments so far. But the behavioral patterns are already visible. For example, I have seen situations where AI generated risk summaries were accepted without sufficient validation. AI generated remediation recommendations were implemented too quickly without having a deeper thought on that. AI prioritized alerts influenced escalation decisions. Or teams assumed that because the AI reviewed it, the analysis must already be robust. And that's where the trust trap quietly enters. Because these systems are becoming extremely persuasive. As I was saying again on the same thing, the dashboards, the way they look intelligently presented, reasoning all validated, summaries sound authoritative, recommendations are structured, confident, and humans naturally begin lowering their skepticism. The danger becomes especially serious during high pressure operational situations, because under pressure humans psychologically seek certainty, a clear path. Though it may be from a human or it may be from a system, but if we are getting something so clearly from a system, why not? That's the mindset, right? If an AI system confidently says issue identified, root cause confirmed, recommended action available, teams feel immediate cognitive relief. Okay, let's go by this path because it's under high pressure, the incident is occurred, we have to go back to the normal scenario. And sometimes that relief overrides caution. That's dangerous. The meta examples are actually very important governance lessons because they reveal something we often underestimate. AI systems can execute technically valid actions within operationally disastrous contexts. That distinctions matter enormously. An AI may say follow incomplete instructions, misinterpret intent, over optimize efficiency, or execute actions without fully understanding organizational consequences. AI can do all of this. Humans do this too, of course, but AI scales mistakes faster. AI scales and scale changes impact. I sometimes say a human analyst can make one bad decision slowly, but when it comes to AI system, it can operationalize a bad decision at enterprise speed. So if humans decisions are affecting one user, 10 users, the decision made by AI can affect millions of users within seconds, and that's the real risk. And honestly, I think future cybersecurity failures may increasingly look different from traditional breaches. The attack path may not always be malware, ransomware, or firewall compromise. Instead, it may look like manipulated AI recommendations, poisoned decision pipelines, AI generated operational errors, false confidence in automated conclusions, or humans failing to challenge incorrect machine reasoning. In other words, the failure shifts from infrastructure compromise to judgment compromise. And that's a profound shift for cybersecurity. We are entering an era where organizations must not only secure networks, endpoints, cloud infrastructure, and identities, they must also secure decision making integrity. Because once organizations become psychologically dependent on AI generated certainty, attackers no longer need to defeat human skepticism, they simply need to bypass it. And maybe that's the most important lesson from all these incidents. The trust trap is rarely a sudden collapse. It doesn't happen so quickly. It is a gradual dependency. The organization slowly stops asking, could the system still be wrong? And the moment that question disappears, starts fading away, governance maturity starts collapsing silently underneath the automation, and that's the where the attackers get their advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a future that we're all concerned about and trying to steer away from, trying to avoid. I know our time's almost up, but I just want to ask one last quick question. Something I'm very curious about, and I think for a lot of the individual security practitioners, we talked a lot about how organizations can fail, how organizations can succeed. But on an individual level, if there's a individual security practitioner listening, or someone in any field, and they're concerned about their ability for themselves to maintain their ability to judge and to criticize and to be an independent thinker, what's one thing, let's say one thing that they can do starting tomorrow to maintain their critical thinking skills in an environment that is going to just become increasingly AI dominant?
So I would say this: do not let AI become the last step in your thinking process. Okay, do not let it be the final moment of truth. Let it become the starting point, the accelerator, the catalyst, the thinking box, the assistant, the analytical partner, whatever you may call it, but never the final unquestioned authority in your mind. Because the biggest long term risk for individual practitioners is not losing technical relevance. There are a lot of resources and mediums to be technically relevant and upskill their resource upskill themselves, but that is not the long term risk. The risk is actually losing independent reasoning capability. And honestly, this can happen very subtly. If everyday professionals increasingly rely on AI to summarize alerts, prioritize risk, explain incidents, then recommend remediation, draft reports, and interpret patterns, then over time the brain slowly shifts from analyzing to accepting. That's the dangerous transition. So one practical habit I strongly recommend is periodically challenge the machine deliberately. Even if the AI recommendation looks correct, pause and ask, why does this recommendation make sense? What assumptions is the system making? What context may be missing? Can the system miss something? Could an attacker manipulate this outcome? Would I reach the same conclusion manually? That exercise itself preserves analytical muscles. I often tell teams critical thinking is like threat hunting for assumptions. You have to actively practice it. Another very important thing is continue doing some work manually, not because manual work is always better, but because manual reasoning preserves intuition. For example, manually investigate certain alerts periodically, perform independent correlation exercises, validate AI generated summaries yourself. or probably run occasional AI off analytical drills. Because if professionals completely stop practicing independent analysis, their judgment weakens gradually without even them realizing it. And cybersecurity is not only a technology discipline, it is fundamentally a thinking discipline, a pattern recognition discipline, and an adversarial reasoning discipline with lot of uncertainty. So if you are using the system which is giving you an output based on certain things, certainty involved in your data that you are feeding into it, then you're actually not helping the organization. Attackers constantly evolve. Everybody knows that in cybersecurity, uncertainty is the biggest factor, which means defenders cannot become intellectually passive. And honestly, I think one of the most important skills in the AI era will become disciplined skepticism. As I was saying, not cynicism, not rejecting AI, but the ability to say, this looks intelligent, but let me still think independently. That mindset is incredibly valuable. So the future cybersecurity analyst should not become a company chat GPT with a company ID card. That's how I add humor to it. But if practitioners stop questioning, validating reasoning, and challenging assumptions, then eventually attackers will exploit not just these technical weaknesses but cognitive complacency. And that's why I believe the strongest cybersecurity professionals of the future will not necessarily be the people using the AI most aggressively or the chat GPT most aggressively. They will be the people who know how to use AI powerfully without surrendering their own judgment to it. Because ultimately, AI can accelerate your analysis and give you a lot of benefits. But wisdom still requires humans.
Yeah, that's great advice. It makes me wonder whether we're going to have like a gym in the future for the mind, where just like nowadays we live in a city and we have to go to the gym for our body. Maybe in the AI era, we'll have to go to the gym for our mind and hire a personal trainer to make sure that our mind is staying fit.
And I'm sure they would get an AI tool itself too
Yeah,
for the mind gym again, because
yeah,
that is
exactly.
the overpowering thing now every day, everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I especially like your advice that you started out with, that AI shouldn't be the last step; it should be the first step. I think that's very simple, very powerful advice, and it's something that you can kind of practice. It can put into practice very, very easily. I want to thank you very much for the conversation today, for joining us here at Inside Cybersecurity by Oraseg. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I think this is a topic that will only continue to grow more and more important. So we appreciate you having you on here and sharing your experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.